What's up, guys? Today we're going to be doing a quick comparison with the iPhone 13 mini to the Asus Zenfone 9. I actually sold the 13 mini to my mother, and what's pretty funny about this phone is my mom, actually I gave my mom the LG Velvet as well too, and she actually uses the Velvet way more than the 13 mini. She actually hates the 13 mini. I might actually bring her on for a video because I just thought that her whole experience with like Android versus iOS is funny. But all right, let's get into this quick comparison though. 13 mini versus Zenfone 9. These are two of the best compact smartphones that you can get, flagship phones. But very awesome either way. Which it doesn't matter which way you swing. You're gonna get a great experience with both of these phones. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump into it. So first off is the size of these phones here. As you can see, the Asus makes the 13 mini look super small, even though the Asus is a very small phone. As you can see, it's much bigger, it's a little bit thicker, and then the Zenfone is actually noticeably heavier than the 13 mini. As you can see, the cameras bumps are just massive on both of these phones actually, but again, the Zenfone just makes it look really small by comparison. Yeah, so you know, the iPhone 13 mini, it is definitely way more compact than the Zenfone. That's why a lot of people really like this phone. This phone is the easiest phone to one hand, and I do mean easy to one hand, and it's mostly because of the display difference here. Before we talk about that, I do want to talk about the hardware a little bit more here. So you will notice that you have metal railings on both of these phones, but you got a glass back and a plastic back. It's sort of like got this like sandpaper type of texture to it, and I really like it. I just like the way it feels in the hand. They both have a premium feeling, so just in case you were wondering, like, does the plastic back feel cheaper? No, and actually if you drop this phone, you know, since it's plastic, it's not going to crack as easy as a glass. But most people are going to put a case on their phone anyway, so it doesn't matter. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the displays on both of these phones here. Alright, so the display setup on the 13 mini, it's a much smaller display at 5.4 inches. It's a Super Retina XDR OLED display, and it is HDR10. It gets about 800 nits for the regular, and then 1200 nits peak brightness, so it is slightly brighter than the Zenfone at the max nits. And then it's 1080 by, it's basically a 1080p panel, 476 for the PPI. As you can see, the Zenfone is a much bigger display at 5.9 inches. It's Super AMOLED, 120 hertz. That's definitely a key factor here. The iPhone does not have the 120 hertz at all. It's just a 60 hertz. It's also HDR10 plus on here as well too, and then we also have 1100 nits peak brightness, and then we have a 1080p panel with 445 for the PPI. Both panels are good, but like I said, I think the Zenfone has a better panel because it's 120 hertz, and also it's got the punch hole instead of the notch here. So as you can see, your viewing experience is going to be pretty good on both, but me personally, I just like to have that extra screen right here. So I like to have that extra screen with that punch hole, you know, right there. Just a little bit more immersive experience when you're watching content. Also, the 120 hertz is just buttery smooth on here, especially when, you know, when just scrolling through stuff like YouTube. Oh dang, this just failed. When scrolling through stuff like YouTube and stuff like that, it just feels much smoother than the iPhone. The iPhone is pretty smooth for 60 hertz, but it's still, the Zenfone is noticeably just smoother. It just feels like buttery smooth. So definitely, I think the Zenfone has the better display here, and also the price of both of these phones, they're actually about the same. So you can find the 13 mini on Apple's website for new for around like 700 bucks. The Zenfone is going for like 750 bucks as well. So definitely take that into consideration as well. Alright, so let's talk about the software experience as well too. So we get Android 12 with the Zen UI, and then we have iOS 15. Basically comes down to, you know, your preference here. There you can do obviously a lot more with Android, customization and stuff like that. With iOS, you get a lot of stuff that people love, like the FaceTime and iMessage and stuff like that. A lot of people really value that, but as far as like the experience, they're kind of getting closer, especially with iOS 16 being able to customize a little bit more. Always on display might be coming. But Android is still just more open. It's just easier to do more things on Android for sure. So it just really is a debate of open versus a closed system. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about speed. So we do have the Apple A15 chip on here on the iPhone, and we do have 128 gigs of internal storage and 4 gigs of RAM. No SD card support, of course. The Zenfone, we do have the new Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 Plus chip on here, and then we also have the Adreno 730. No SD card support, 128 gigs of internal storage and 8 gigs of RAM. You do have slightly more RAM. Both of these phones are extremely fast when you're just launching applications and stuff like that. If we just go into YouTube real quick, hold on, let's redo that. They both are basically flagship chips. They almost pretty much open stuff identical. So in terms of speed and in terms of gaming performance and stuff like that, you won't really notice a difference. Both these phones will play PUBG at HDR Extreme. I do have gaming tests on both of these phones, or I'm going to drop a gaming test on this one. I do have a gaming test on the 13 mini. Definitely check that out. They are both just very fast phones in general, guys. So definitely, don't let that sway you from, buying either one, because they're just both buttery smooth. Let's do a quick speaker test, see which one sounds louder. Yeah, the Zenfone is slightly louder. The 13 mini is still pretty loud. Oh yeah, but it lacks the bass quality of the Zenfone for sure. The Zenfone, just testing the speaker against a ton of phones, it just has much better bass than your average phone, and not just loud bass. It really has a lot of good detail to its bass quality as well too, which is really nice. So that's something that I definitely appreciate. Also, one thing about the Zenfone is you do have a headphone jack up top. So you do not have a headphone jack on the iPhone. So if you're a diehard headphone jack lover, you will really appreciate the Zenfone for having that. Let's talk about some of the additional features as well. We already know iPhone has Face ID. That works really well. The Zenfone does have a fingerprint scanner built into the power button. And you can also take advantage of the face unlock on here. So you do have two methods instead of the one method on the iPhone. They both have IP68 dust and water resistant, which is nice as well too. And also for the additional features, you do have NFC on both. And you do lack the wireless charging on the Zenfone. And the 13 mini does have the wireless charging. So it's got wireless charging. But yeah, that kind of sucks that it doesn't have that, and it's got the MagSafe wireless charging. But also another trade-off is that the Zenfone charges at 30 watts versus the iPhone's 18 watts. So it takes longer to charge this phone than to charge this phone. So that's also a very awesome thing. But we'll talk about the battery situation a little bit later. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys these side-by-side stills, but let's talk about the camera specs first. So with the 12 mini, we do have a 12 megapixel standard on here, and then we also have a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It shoots in 4K 24 through 60, and then we have a 12 megapixel standard that shoots in 4K 24 through 60 as well too. Now the Zenfone does have a much bigger sensor at a 50 megapixel sensor for the standard, and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It shoots in 8K 24, so it can do that. The iPhone cannot. You also have a 12 megapixel sensor for the front, and then it's a 4K 30. So let's go ahead and check out those side-by-side stills. Which one do you guys prefer? Here's the Zenfone. Here's the iPhone. Alright guys, let's go ahead and talk about the battery situation. This will surprise you. Even though the iPhone is much smaller than the Zenfone, it still gets just as good battery life. And it might surprise you about the Zenfone. You might say, small Android phones have terrible battery life. The Zenfone is an exception. It has excellent battery life and really good standby time. Both of these phones, whichever phone you decide to go with, they have excellent battery life. So that's something that I really like. Both these phones easily do over 6 hours of screen on time like it's nothing. So that is really nice. I'm really glad to see these compact phones having a great battery life. If you want to know the battery specs, which it really doesn't matter, because even though the iPhone's battery is smaller on paper, it still has the optimization from Apple. So it's got a 2,438 milliamp battery, and then the Zenfone has a much bigger 4,300 milliamp battery. But like I said, it doesn't matter because they both pretty much get excellent battery life. So which phone would you guys go with considering all these pros and cons? So be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.